everyone. Welcome to our LA County Library virtual event, Creative Career Paths, Casting for Film and TV. I'm Catherine at LA County Library, and I'll be your host today. Creative Career Paths is a series exploring careers in the entertainment, film, TV, and media industries. In today's program, director and producer Kimberly Browning will have a conversation with Vice President of Casting at Disney Television, Kim N. Williams, and independent casting director Julia Kim, talking about how to become a casting director. First, I'd like to introduce Kimberly Browning, who is facilitating our conversation. Kimberly is a filmmaker based in LA and is the founder and festival director of Hollywood Shorts Film Festival, which launched in 1998. She is an associate short film programmer at Tribeca Film Festival and a senior programmer at Catalyst Content Festival. She has been the executive producer of HBO Access since 2015 and is now part of the new Warner Media Access programs team, developing emerging writers and directors in episodic television. Kim N. Williams has worked as Vice President of Casting at Disney Television Studios since October 2019. She has also worked at ABC as Director of Casting, where she worked on a variety of projects, including the critically acclaimed For Life. As an independent casting director, she worked on Greg Berlanti's All-American, the award-winning Netflix series Narcos, The Bernie Mac Show, and Martin, several Tyler Perry movies and series, including Diary of a Mad Black Woman, and other feature films, including My Little One and Payment Received. She worked as casting director for HBO Access, allowing her to guide casting while mentoring creative minds from diverse backgrounds. She has also worked at Paramount Pictures and Television, Fox, and HBO. Julia Kim is an independent casting director based in Los Angeles. The films she's worked on have been recognized by a multitude of top-tier film festivals. She has worked on films such as Minari, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, Spa Night, Hunter-Gatherer, and But I'm a Cheerleader. In 2020, Julia was invited into the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. She also serves as a member of the Casting Society of America's Equity and Entertainment Committee and continues to champion inclusion with a side project called Invasion LA that helps aspiring Asian actors learn to better navigate the Hollywood landscape. And with that, I'll hand it off to Kimberly to start us off.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Good morning, everybody. Hello to all of our new attendees and welcome back to our regulars. Hey, Julia, hey, Kim. It's good to see you guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here with me today. All of us have worked for years and years and years. And I was so excited when we decided to do a casting session because there's been so much change over what a casting director's role is, and the impact that COVID has been really transformative as well, and just how your jobs are changing. So I was really excited to kind of hear about that and talk about that. But I also think casting is one of those areas where there is no degree in casting, and there is, it's very hard to find training programs, and of the different production departments, casting, I think, can be really mysterious in how to develop a career there. So I was really excited to have this conversation and talk about how you all started, what you think the road to entry is for people now, and how the job is changing and what people need to be prepared for to be in this career. So Julia, I'd love to start with you and just talk about how you started. What was the moment you knew you wanted to be a casting director? What was your first opportunity to get into the business? Tell us a little bit about your first steps in the journey.
Agreed. It's a very mysterious profession. Didn't even know it existed when I fell into it myself. I started I knew I wanted to be in entertainment. I knew I was a movie lover. I started in animation on The Simpsons. Creativity all around me, loved it, thrived on it. But I personally was not creatively fulfilled. So I answered this good old anonymous classified ad in the back of the Hollywood Reporter, and it said casting office seeking intern, and it intrigued me. And so I went and I met with the casting director, who ended up being David Rubin, who is our president of Academy of Motion Picture and Sciences. And he continues to be my mentor today. And full circle of working with my mentor as a partner on a project recently. So that was really just a thrill. And I sat on the floor one summer that he was working on three huge Hollywood movies, and back in the day, pre-digital everything, opening up every headshot and organizing them in piles. And that was my education. I looked at all the resumes, I looked at the representation that each talent had, and could start to figure out who represented what kinds of talent, and got familiar with the landscape that way. Saw a revolving door of actors coming in and seeing how they conducted themselves in the waiting room. Saw how the casting director and associate casting director conducted themselves. Eavesdropped on phone conversations. Just how to conduct yourself and how to put the actor at ease when they're already kind of nerve wrangled, coming in. And so, make them feel comfortable, make them feel confident, make them feel that they're going to do great. And then, again, like, yeah, you don't get like, okay, now you're ready and here you are, here's a job. You really have to, once you become qualified or feel like you have, start seeking employment and putting out letters of introduction. I think it's really helpful when there's a casting director or shows or movies that you really responded to, just stylistically or with the cast, and reaching out and sort of having a target to your introduction. Like, I really loved the casting in dot dot dot. It was really surprising to see this actor play that kind of role, and it was really inspiring to see them portray something I hadn't seen before, or something that allows the casting director to go, oh, this person really has an eye, or
So
they
for
notice.
you, out of your internship, what was the next step? Did you
The next
rise
step was
up
that
in that office, or did you go and start finding other jobs to
he
associate on?
they saw that I had a knack for it and that I was really passionate about it. And so he recommended me to somebody, and that was my first professional paid gig. Yeah.
Wow. So you got a casting director opportunity from just learning in that office and him opening up that door. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. It
That's
was a summer of no pay and a
right.
lot, but it was like going to school. Like, you got yourself prepared, and
Gotcha.
that's priceless.
Amazing. So,
Yeah.
Kim, how did you start? What was your first steps? What was your first intention? What was your first yes?
So mine started very similar to Julia's. I started as an intern when I went to college. I went to UCLA. I knew I wanted to do something in entertainment. My original interest was to pursue a career in news as a newscaster. But I quickly discovered it was not that interesting to me, the notion of sort of just sitting behind a desk and reading the work that somebody else, had done. It just wasn't that fulfilling. And I thought, okay, I need to figure something else out. And quickly, I went to our career center, saw a posting for a casting job and had no idea what it was. But I thought, oh, I'll go meet and see what this is about. And literally from the moment I first walked into the office, I think is when my love of casting was born. There was just this energy and excitement, and similar to what Julia described, stacks of pictures everywhere, phones ringing off the hook, people coming in and out. And there was really like just a palpable energy and excitement of something being born and created and crafted, and that was really exciting to me. And so I got the internship, and my very first day, I was, given some sort of basic assignments, really nothing having to do with the job of casting. It was more go get a turkey sandwich and make sure it's fresh turkey and it's no mustard and, that kind of thing. And once I guess, proved to the office that I was capable of delivering a sandwich as, ordered, they allowed me to take on phone duties, and my job was to, when a phone call comes in, first name, last name, phone number. Do not pass a call, do anything with a call unless you have first name, last name, phone number. So I get my very first call. The person just gives their first name, and I said, I'm very sorry, I need a first and last name and your phone number. And they said, oh, no, 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 you know, I'm the director, I need to talk to the casting director right away. And I said, I'm sure you do, but I really am going to need first name, last name, phone number, because that's what I need. I don't even know that I had any other explanation beyond that, other than this is what I've been told I need, and I'm not going to not do what the people that I'm working for have told me to do. And the person on the other line chuckled and then gave his full name and his phone number, and it was Steven Spielberg. They were casting, or we were casting a film, or I was the intern, but they were casting a film for him at the time. And he asked, you know, are you an intern? And I said, yes. And he goes, okay, you're doing a really good job. You know.
And that was
So
your first.
yeah, exactly. So I pass him on to my boss, Ruben Cannon, who, you know, much like Julia, was my sort of mentor, soulmate, you know, Yoda through the whole journey of casting, and he remains that for me today. So he and Steven get on a call together. One of the actors on the movie, in a role that was working at the end of the week, had fallen out. And literally, Ruben rattles off the name of 10 actors off the top of his head to replace the actor who became unavailable. And it was in that moment that I got that, you know, the world stopped, everything came to a halt. There was like lights and, you know, over Ruben. And I thought, I have no idea what he just did, but I want to know what that is, and I want to be able to do it. I literally have no idea what it is. And for me, that became, you know, my, you know, quest to be able to do that. And I feel like now, you know, my journey continues with that. You know, I from a very young age have been interested in the arts, you know, theater, television, film. In my internship days, I would watch television shows or go to the movies with a notebook in hand so that I could make notes of the actors that I loved, the ones that spoke to me for, you know, whatever reason it was. And even though they may not be right for something I was actively working on in the moment, I figured at some point I would probably reference them and want to know who they are. And also the other thing, as I was coming up as an intern and then later an assistant, there were these books called players directories that we had. I don't know what happened to those, but one of the things that I would do,
French.
Yeah, yep. One of the things that I would do is, and I do that now on a service that we have called IMDb, I will just randomly just start flipping through, and anybody whose picture or credits are of interest to me, I sort of just do a deep dive on them and learn as much as I can about who they are, the work that they're doing, you know, their history and experience, so that I can bring, again, those tools to each project that I do. Because I like to be the person who knows the most about actors when I'm working on a project. Part of that is my job, but I think also it helps to educate the team that I'm working on about who these people are and why they are right for a particular role and would fit into you know, this particular world.
So tell us how you navigated from internship, and what was that next step that you were able to break through the PA intern apprentice bubble that sometimes people get trapped in?
Yeah, you know, the thing about casting is that it is, as much as there is an instinctual intuitiveness to it, there is also, you know, much to what Julia spoke to, sort of learning the office sort of protocols and that sort of thing. And so it's a multi-layered sort of experience, and it's not something that you can learn in like a year or two. It takes time to sort of get your legs and figure out all of the different facets of it. and it works differently if you're working in theater, if you're working in film, if you're working in TV, if you're working in commercials, reality, like they all have their own sort of intricacies. And so it is a process of learning and understanding. And I always akin it to sort of like being a doctor. Like you don't, you graduate from college and you don't instantly become a doctor. There's another level of training and education that you have to do in order to be successful in whichever discipline that you've decided to do. And I think there's a similar way of that in casting. So for me, I interned for my entire college career. And then when I graduated, and with Reuben Cannon, and then when I graduated, he hired me as an assistant in his office. And then I worked as an assistant with him for a few years, and then realized that I'd only seen the world of casting and maybe there were other places and things that might spark joy for me as well. And so I went and did the agency side of things for a year. I worked at WME, which was also a great, incredible learning experience. Again, because it was, connected to the work that I did, but I'd never seen it from that side or worked from that side of things. And so that was a fascinating education as well. But I did learn, quickly that I am much more a creator than a buyer. And so for me, I much prefer the creative side of things. And so I left the agency after about a year and went back to casting and landed a job at HBO, which was fantastic.
So that's both of you had the opportunity where your name was chosen by a very established company where you were able to learn under someone who could really open up the world for you. And so what do you think it was, if you can even distill it in any way? So many people are sending their resumes off to jobs at warnermedia.com. And so can you kind of identify how you presented yourself, what was in your materials as even an intern, that you feel like these big companies, these big, really respected casting directors chose you? Were you able to, as you look back on it, figure out?
At that time, it was a smaller network than it is today. And so if I excelled under one office, which was the intern office, and David was a very formidable person as a casting director, and his recommendation meant a lot. So, getting that turkey sandwich right is very key. You got to pay attention to the details. And that is your first test. Those menial jobs.
That's what are you saying that's what you?
I'm just saying as a whole, like for anyone out there who's listening that wants to kind of keep passing through hoops to get to the ultimate goal, every little task that is given to you, whether it's taking a message and taking it correctly, or getting the turkey sandwich right, because lunch is very important to the staff, is very key to somebody who's going to excel at this job, that getting the details right.
Right.
And so the recommendation went a long way for me, for personally, the recommendation.
I think a lot of people, because I don't know if there's an answer to this, and I'm just trying to search. I know people are questioning, but how'd you get the internship? Because 100,000 people applied for that internship. And so, is there something you had somebody help you with your resume? Did they ask you certain questions that you felt like you had really prepared for? Do you feel like it just happened, and when the door opened, you were there and knew how to learn?
Yeah, I mean, I think it in my experience, it was a combination of luck and opportunity, sort of meeting at the right time in the right place. But part of that too, I think, is, you especially when it comes to casting, because there are so many moving parts. And to Julia's point, the devil's in the details. I think, when I look for interns and assistants, I'm looking for people that I feel there is a understanding of that, a confidence, a trust, and even in just our conversations, because, when I meet with people, I'm not having conversations about the actual job, right? I'm talking about, because I want to know who you are, how you came here, what your passions are, what makes you happy, what drives you. Because if I know and learn those things and hear from you, what makes you tick and what gets you going, that to me will inform if I think that you have what I need or what I'm looking for in an intern or in an assistant. I have often found my best assistants and interns sort of just being out in the world where they haven't sent their resumes into me, like I'm at Nordstrom and somebody I'm helping and, is helping me. And we just develop a connection of some sort. And that turns into a conversation about what else they like to do, and which then turns into a conversation about, the business and, that kind of thing. And so I think it's about, because I think anything that you are going to do well at, you have to love, 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 love. And you have to love it to the point that, to Julia's point, it's a summer of not getting paid. It's a year of not getting paid, but you love this, whatever it is you're doing, from running to get the turkey sandwich to, making sure that the copier has the paper in it, to making sure the sign-in sheet is out. All of those things that, again, are key to an office being able to run and function, and so that the other people can do their jobs and, make the magic and create these, beautiful worlds filled with these wonderful characters. It's all about all of those engines firing at, 100% all the time. And, so that we can sort of make that happen.
Yeah.
And for me, I in a sense was fortunate because I had parents, they didn't know it, but I had parents who were supportive and supported me in a way that I was able to take on some of those kinds of things, in that way. And so for me, I could be up at the crack of dawn and like in the office before anybody, getting stuff organized and trying to, based on what I knew in the moment, anticipate, okay, I know that for sessions they need X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to try to get that ready. I know at the end of the day they're going to X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to try to just be ahead of all of it, anticipate the needs, ask questions in a non-obtrusive way, sort of, read the room and the moments.
The difference between an authentic, it's so vibrant when somebody is really passionate about the job and are learning the job, as opposed to somebody who pops up to life when somebody important walks in the room.
Correct.
Or somebody who's trying to make a good impression instead of trying to do a good job. Right?
Correct.
Julia?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you
Yeah.
both, you both are people I love. Well, like when I get a new project, or you get those first calls that this might be happening, which is like a cloud deciding if it's going to rain today or not. You two are always the first to open my mind up, because I get excited because you guys get excited. You both are people who were instrumental in me changing and expanding the way I looked at possibility when building the world I'm trying to build. And it's almost like the world's finally caught up with the way both of you have talked to me about casting since years and years ago, where people like me would have to go into meetings and the cast would be all really homogenized, and then the creator didn't have a world that necessarily had different shades and types and colors. And now there's I'm hoping that you're finding we're not having to fight so hard to bring a new way of thinking about, could this be a woman? Could this be so can you guys talk about the creative aspect of the most important part of this job, and the relationship with the director, and bringing the director menus of how they're going to create these characters and how these characters are going to move in the world and deliver. Um, and the way both of you approach that really are significant and meaningful to me. And I think the industry is really catching up to the way you guys have always thought about these things. So Julia, tell me a little bit about when you first get a script. Do you want to talk to the director first? Do you want to hit that script first? And as you start to get to know these characters, what are you looking for? And how do you transpond that to actors coming to your mind that you want to recommend or suggest?
It can come in different forms. Like there can be attached actors. So I like to read, well, so I like to get basic information first. Like where's it shooting, what the budget is, and just the log line. And as I read the script, I definitely have my good old fashioned legal pad, and I write down every character, 1 through whatever. And I write down the name of the character, the age range, and any characteristics that are on the page, and any that I sort of discover as I'm reading the character play out. And then sometimes names come to me instantaneously. Sometimes I need to have the whole script marinate. And I also do jot down, just like Kim, you have to be voracious in your discovery of new talent and rediscovery of talent, like somebody who's been maybe dormant for a while, and oh, wouldn't it be lovely to see them again? What have they been up to? It's just a combination of your mind just like ticking and talking about names, and then I kind of write down a bunch of names that are a tapestry of the vibe of the piece that I'm reading, and I don't even know if they exactly have a place, but it's this person's sensibility that probably could fit the landscape of what this project or script is about. And then we have discussions. I definitely love collaborating, so I love directors that love to collaborate. Some directors have a vast knowledge of actors. Am I frozen?
You're, for me, you're a little off, but your audio is coming through great.
Oh, now she's
Okay.
frozen.
And then, oh no, darn
No,
it.
you're back. You're back.
Can
Sorry.
you still
You're
hear
back.
me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Have actors and have specific ideas already, and then some directors just are an open, just very open to left of center ideas, to obvious ideas, to who would be a fresh idea for something like this, who is primed for something like this. Like I like to work in feature films a lot, and we dip into the TV world because they have a nice paycheck from TVs. And so who would like to do a summer project, or who would like to work against the character that everybody knows about, them playing on TV. So it's just a combination of thinking and collaborating.
That's super helpful. Julia, while Kim answers this question, I might have you log out and come back in.
Okay.
You want to try that? Because it's getting static on my end. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to log out.
Okay, perfect. So Kim, also tell us a little bit about how you prepare for your first meetings with the director and navigating. How do you kind of figure out how to get a director you haven't worked with before, so you can get a sense of what they want, where they're really set, and why, in terms of serving the story? And then how do you figure out this director might really benefit, like where to push, where not to push, is bottom line what I'm really asking. How do you determine that once you've kind of gotten a sense of what's possible?
Right. So my process is similar to Julia's, but the other piece for me is sort of trying to develop a friendship with my co-collaborators, because I think once we're in a place that we understand, even on a small scale, who we are, how we think, how we present in the world, what our sort of, you know, vision of the world is, I think that then makes the creative process much more interesting and fun and collaborative, and allows people to be more open-minded, right?
When you
You
say
and I,
collaborators, is that the director and the producer per se?
yeah, it depending on,
Maybe the
what
network.
realm I'm working on. Yeah, maybe the studio. If it's an indie, yeah, probably the director, the producers. So that again, that as we're sort of going on this journey together, and I like to be a disruptor, so I'm not going to always be interested in the obvious choice. And if you give me the obvious choice, I'm going to bring you, 10 180-degree different options, because I just think that, you know, editing is always necessary. So yes, I hear you and see that, but did you think about this part of, the rainbow, of, options and opportunities? And I find that process works really, really well. Again, just in terms of building a trust and a language that we can all sort of agree and speak to. And I think, for me, it typically works pretty well.
So, Julia, thank you for doing.
Hi.
Yay, you're
Am I
back.
better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. I think that that's really critical, in terms of for us as filmmakers, the casting director, because a lot of times, especially if we've been working a while, we have people in mind. We have people we like working with. We have people that we trust and know are our go-tos. But when a casting director recommends an actor, I have certain expectations that that actor is going to be able to be professional, be on time, be prepared. There's certain, when you as a casting director are recommending and bringing actors to us, what are the things you're looking for from that actor that you are, you know what I mean? Like your reps on the line a little bit when you're putting actors up front and championing actors. And so also you're going through so many auditions and so many tapes, and somebody could have a good audition but really maybe not have the skill set to adapt to new changes on the fly, especially method actors can be, if pages change. How did you learn how to recognize good performance, reliability, professionalism in order to say, yes, in addition to this great audition, I want to champion this actor to this director because I know this and this? How did you know, or how did you teach yourself, or how did you research or learn good performance? How to figure out if an actor was up to the job?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just actually had a recent experience where somebody in our audition process had rehearsed it a certain way, and when some new ideas were presented to try it differently, they really weren't able to implement those changes. They had rehearsed it, or they were only really capable of delivering it this way that they had practiced or presented. So I think as filmmakers, you want fresh takes, you want different POVs, you want something different and surprises to come out, so you have a lot to work with in the editing process. So I think it's really important to have an actor who's versatile and flexible and full of surprises, and also reliable with the way that you do expect it. And then let's play around. Just an actor who's not afraid to play around. As far as the other aspects of reliability and coming prepared. It's a small town, so
Mm.
you do hear about certain actors' conduct or unreliability through previous work or collaborators. And if there's a seed of doubt, I am facilitating a call with the director that worked with this particular talent before with the director now so that they could have a conversation and discuss what that experience was like for them. And I do think at the end of the day, it's about the performance. So you take it with a grain of salt because each experience is different and you don't want to put a lot of weight into something that happened a while ago because people change, people learn, people get humbled. So it's a discussion with the team once that person is the strongest choice and there's this gray area with them. Do we pull the trigger and say let's go for it, or is it not worth it? It's really a discussion with the producers, and maybe you raise the concerns with that actor's rep, and that rep says, oh no, that person has changed and is not going to behave that way anymore, or but it rarely happens. I mean, it's not a common occurrence, but it's something that does pop up now and again.
Mm-hmm. Kim, can you talk about how you, as you ascended through your career, what did you do to learn what good performance was? What kind of research did you do? Did you watch a lot of stuff? Did you go see a lot of plays? How did you learn what good acting was?
I would just want to go back to one thing Julia was talking about for a second, and then I'll come to that. I agree with Julia that performance is king, and I think that we're in an industry filled with egos and chips on shoulders and narcissism and all kinds of things. And so I don't usually put a lot of weight in stories I hear from people about their experiences on another project, because there are always so many factors impacting all of the things that can happen on a set during a production. So unless it's something like really egregious, that is just like, no one would literally, like, it's a high bar that no one would find this action behavior acceptable. I am of the idea to give people a pass, because again, I don't know who, the whys, the whats, what was, in play. And I would hate to deny an actor an opportunity based on something that they were potentially not in control of. Again, based on, sort of hearsay. So I am an advocate of, like, we come to this project fresh, and my expectations are that you as a performer will come with your A game, with your A behavior. And when you show up for an audition, you come into the room the way that I am, prepared, ready to go, ready to work. On set, same thing. And that, again, that's sort of the agreement that I have as I walk into a project, as I bring actors into the mix. And even from the other side, from my, co-collaborators, my producers, directors, I expect all of those things as well. And for the most part, like Julia says, the exceptions are really rare. And the casting process is truly that, an opportunity to sort of create the magic of this project that we've all come together to create. Okay, so now to go to your other question. So yeah, I think, it's a really funny question, because I do still think I am learning. Like, I feel like I'm always in the process of learning something new, discovering something new, realizing something new, looking at something in a way that I hadn't thought of. So my process is sort of ever changing and ever evolving. Like I like to think of myself as sort of like a citizen of the world. And so I am in the world, sort of talking to people, observing people, watching people, seeing how, and it's funny because sometimes I'll think like to myself, I'll go, man, am I an alien? Like I feel like I'm always like really like listening and watching people's conversations and their behaviors. But part of that is to understand then when I am casting, what if I'm talking to a filmmaker who started a shorts program, or I'm talking to a casting director who created, this really interesting, program for Asian Pacific artists, like what things are they saying and doing that I then want to see and do when I bring an actor in that's auditioning for a role like this. And so, yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's about me knowing what I like, right? Who I've responded to on screen in projects, on stage in theater, and sort of all of that sort of melding and coming together, and sort of leaning into that when actors come in to audition. Julia mentioned before that like sometimes actors will come in and have a very set way that they're performing things, and I respect that and appreciate that, because obviously we all have our process, and some people, that's how they work and operate, and that's fine. Others work in, sort of a different way. But I think if you have, as an actor, if you're coming into it with your tools and your skills and your training, even in the moments where, and listen, nerves are really big thing that happens to actors when they walk into a room. They may be cool as a cucumber at home. They've done the scene a million times and they're, popping it. And then they walk into this room of people that they have no idea who they are or what they're wanting and looking for. And I see it because they want nothing more than for us to go, you were fantastic. This is your job. And the thing that I have to say, and I say this to actors all the time, is what you have to remember is for each role, we just need one actor, right? And we go through a lot of people, right? We kiss a lot of frogs to get to that one person for the role. But that's not your job to focus on. Your job when you come into the room is to give us the best possible performance. And it's not, we're not looking for perfection.
I think, sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I think
Yeah.
I'm looking more for people who, how as a casting director and people who are
Sorry.
learning
Yeah.
to be casting directors,
Yeah.
what are tools that we can help them in things they can do to learn how to identify good performance in the room?
Yep. Sorry, I turned the
That's okay.
burner there. Sorry. Yeah, I think it is
Like how
watching.
are there literal things that, like you said, you're consistently looking for things that made you feel or mostly connect to things you like or things you think I like.
Yeah.
Like you talk to me and we talk a lot about what I responded to. You ask me what I'm watching, you ask me what I dig. So you're saying you extrapolate from that. Oh, Kim's probably gonna like the way that this actor does that. So I want to stay just a little bit more focused
Yeah.
on how people who are apprentices, who are just becoming assistant casting directors, what can they be doing in their hours to teach themselves how to be successful casting directors? And I think a core part of that is being able to recognize this actor's got the goods to even bring to a producer or a director.
Yeah, I think, all of those things that you said, I think you have to watch as much television, film, go to theater as you can. And again, identify the things, the qualities, the actors that sort of speak to you if you're in an office, come up with lists for the roles that, the team is working on. And at some point come and say, hey, I worked on a couple of ideas. Can I go over them with you and sort of talk through list of people you put together, why you think they might be right for this role, so that you start to develop a confidence, one, in your own ability to see talent and understand talent, and then sharing it with the people that are actually doing it, again, to help reinforce it or understand why X is not necessarily right for this, but could be right for this, particular role. So it really is about working your own creative muscle in a constant way. And that's why I was saying before, like when I started, I used to walk around with my notebook always, and I'd be in a darkened theater, jotting down actors' names and notes. Even during trailers, for things, like it literally started the moment, the film started running. On television shows, who was popping as the series regulars, who did I like in the guest roles and why, who did I see on this episode and then saw them on this episode and they were so different but still so great. Again, just sort of starting to note that, and again, tracking people and making lists of people that really resonate with you.
Julia, in that conversation as well, because you had a very rare dynamic where you got a casting director opportunity out of the gate. So tell us about then you had to really look towards educating yourself when you have such big opportunities so early on. You didn't. So how did you do that? What did you do logistically to rise to that occasion? And did you then pursue other assistant casting or associate casting jobs and then do smaller casting director jobs? And tell me how you developed your toolkit at that time.
Well, to take from what Kim said, in addition to everything she said, I love to also be an observer of everybody and everything around us. So, like, I'll go to the skate pit in Venice and I will eavesdrop on all the conversations going on between those fellas and gals and everyone in between. I think authenticity and being able to detect false notes in a performance is a really good tool. And in order to do that, you need to engage in the environment around you and how are a certain age group talking, how are a certain cultural group talking, how what are they talking about, how do they relate to each other. We are great observers and absorbers of that because we are trying to replicate that in a narrative. And so for me, a false note ruins it for me, and it needs to come from a genuine place. Even if the subject matter is as absurd as it gets, the actor still needs to commit to the character that he or she is playing or they are playing. So for me to hone my skills, it's incremental. And just like Kim said, it's not like, oh, you graduated medical school, so now you're ready to be a doctor. You have to shadow a doctor and see how they conduct themselves with the patient. And when you have news to break to them, whether it's good news or bad news, how do they do that? And so an actor is nervous and adrenaline is flowing in an audition process because it's the weirdest process in the world to come into a room and start playing this character in front of people who are just staring at you sitting on a couch or whatever. It's an odd process. But just when you think that someone comes in and there's magic in that room, and then you're like, oh, but it's completely possible to transform and take us into this world. And so I just learned from all my bosses. Yes, I bounced around quite a bit. It was unnerving to think that I was on my own to find my own employment and be freelance like that. But I worked with so many different types of people with their own process, and I absorbed and learned and discovered what worked for me ultimately, and whose process I responded to or was inspired by, and applied all the different potpourri of processes and kind of just found my own.
That's incredible. And I think it's important, and why I wanted you both to talk about your journey, because I don't think people who are aspire to be casting professionals think about that there are several different arenas that there are casting jobs and associate casting jobs. And so because that freelance, that people can go work at a bigger shop, right? Like Kim, you are in-house at a network. There are casting companies. I think, Julia, when we first met, you were doing a lot of commercials, and
Still
there
do.
and still do. And so I think that that's another, as games and AR VR ascend, there are more casting opportunities, and I don't know that aspiring casting people realize uh,
And that makes
how
more
many.
opportunities for actors too. Like commercials, like pretty much everyone has a shot at booking a commercial. And so it's such a great way to learn how a set operates. And it's really an actor's job to also be an absorber as well. If you're lucky enough to be booked on a job and you see that it takes a village to shoot one scene, and how you need to do your job and how everyone else has their job, and if
Yeah.
not, if people aren't doing their jobs, it's the wheels not turning smoothly.
For casting directors, when especially young up and coming casting associates, talk a little bit more about how commercial branded content industrials that are not maybe the things people hear about a lot, the casting, when they're watching Spirit Awards, those are the casting directors people think about. Can you talk about how people can create opportunity for themselves or look for entry points as young interns, apprentices, associate casting directors? How did you find jobs in the commercial sector? Because it's a different community of people. There's not a lot of overlap between relationship building in the feature side, television side, commercial side. They're all different groups of people. So can you talk a little bit more about how young casting directors can look for opportunities in those spaces?
Going to Hollywood Shorts
Mhm.
and going to see a short, and then lingering in the lobby waiting for that filmmaker to emerge after his or her screening or their screening, and saying, wow, I really enjoyed that film, and it really moved me. And I noticed the casting was, that was part of why it moved me so much. And who did, talk about it, discuss it with them, and show your passion towards that profession and how it directly entails to that person's project, and exchange contact info and say, I'd really love a shot at your next project. I really feel like I could contribute and bring something to the table. And they'll hopefully, your passion could be infectious enough for them to say, you know what? I want to take a shot at you, because just like Kim meeting somebody at Nordstrom's and just really sparking with that person because of how they conduct themselves, like that could also be the filmmakers. Like, what do I got to lose? This person is so passionate about me, my material, and my project. I would love to further discuss.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I think also in the commercial, I think IMDb and social media, you know, young casting people need to take the time to watch who's casting what, and
Mm-hmm.
and more people are available online, and you can let them know. I love the way you said that, Julia. I love the way you made that show. Can I learn from you? Can I come apprentice for you or assist for you? In knowing the people that are casting the shows that resonate for you should be how you're building your list of the people you try to get work from and reach out to and learn from. I love that. And especially, we have people here from all over the world. We have people here from Taiwan, from LA. There are festivals no matter where you are. And that's a wonderful place to find who's casting what, and accessibility. I love that idea.
Yeah, and even the
Mhm.
great thing about, those festivals, panels, things like that, is it's not only the filmmakers who have projects in those festivals, but there are all kinds of inspired, creatives who are there to be in that space and that moment. And so it's a great opportunity, again, to just be there to meet other people and again, make connections, like Julia said, and find, kindreds and talk about future collaborations. It's a really great opportunity.
Mhm.
Uh, and again, games and VO casting, I think, is a real specialty. Can you talk or give us any insider tips on what you're seeing in the business? Are those kind of opportunities growing? And how does one look for those kind of jobs?
Hmm.
Though
Um,
they are growing, that's for certain. It's not, neither of those are really spaces that I operate it. Well, from the animation side of things, voiceovers, yes. I mean, that's, we've got both television and film animation. Um, and those are, very specific animals, but they also, in terms of operating, it's very similar to film and television casting in that regard. Um, Games, which is, coming up fast and furious. Again, I think it's similar. You can go to, E3 festivals and talk to the creators and the companies that are behind making a lot of these games. And again, express your love, your interest in being a part of it and moving in that way. And I think again, it's about, I think, if you have a love and a passion for it and you can talk about it in a way that showcases that, and your ability to sort of contribute to the creative process, I think those things are always exciting and interesting to, anybody on the other side who's, developing and working
Yeah.
on those projects. Yeah.
Kim, were you gonna add something? Did
you mean
Julia.
Julia?
Julia? Sorry, it is the Kim show.
No, it is the Kim Fest. Yes.
It is. Pretend that.
I would just say that if it were me pursuing that particular world, yes, those conventions and festivals, because it's kind of like there's casting directors who specialize in that world. And so they don't always get credited at the end of a game or something like that, but I would look for the company that produces the majority of a lot of these things that seem
Helpful.
to, and then kind of inquire about working as an intern in that company and then figuring out their in-house departments and then sort of targeting who's doing the casting within that within that company. And or if you find out who does cast them, write them, because I find that yeah, there's casting directors who specialize in that world, and so
Yeah,
it's
I think
about
that with
targeting
the
those.
voiceover, are they're voiceover special cast. And I also find, like, I'm doing more game work myself. So I didn't know there's a whole different list of actors that game people. They were like, you have to cast one of these 10 actors, and all the gamers are we can guarantee a certain amount of sales if we can
Right.
book two of these actors. And they were
Mhm.
all people I recognized. And some of them are stunt people, some of them are action people, but they have their own fan base and their own fandom, and they're casting directors that really specialize in that. And I just don't want people to miss that. That could be really big open doors.
Oh yeah, it's a world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that you can transition, and theater as well. Bigger theater companies, as we start to come out of COVID, please also in your town. Some of the some theater groups have their own casting teams in house, and could be an opportunity if they're getting ready to look at their new season. So keep those things in mind wherever you live. I want to talk a little bit about the other part of the job. We've gotten to talk about the creative process and the importance and the of what you bring in building the world. The relationship with actors and directors we think about, we know about. That's kind of forward facing. The amount of the business side that casting directors are involved in terms of understanding SAG rules, the SAG protocols, but you spend a lot of time navigating agents and managers and other business relationships on behalf of the film and the team. And can you talk a little bit about, as you started to grow in your career, what were the skill sets that employed that? What I think casting directors need to be negotiators, and a lot of people don't think about that. Can you talk more about the business side of your jobs, and what you feel are skill sets that you've really developed that make you good at what you do?
Um,
Julia, why don't
so,
you start?
I mean, I work a lot in the independent world. So that applies to me in a way that I know what budget I have to work with. And so my lists come with some knowledge of what actors would work for what I have to work with. Um, independent directors sometimes think, oh, well, Joaquin Phoenix does indies. Will he do mine? And it's a skill set to kind of gently say, no, I don't think that's gonna happen. And then you don't want to come off as a naysayer because you believe in the material, but it's a tricky thing to navigate that conversation and have a real come to Jesus moment with like realities of who you have to work with. But then sometimes we make the offer just to get sort of what we know innately is going to be the answer. But if they're passionate about their material, it's our job to translate that passion to the rep and say, listen, it's probably a long shot, but my director is so passionate about your client doing this. Could you give us a quick answer so we don't languish here for weeks? But would you maybe read it on your client's behalf because you know what your client's taste is or where they're at in their career? Is this something where you think that they would want to be their next job or their next move? Those kinds of strategy conversations. Also, conversations with the rep saying, I know it's less than what they make, but the material is so strong. And I just feel so certain that if they read it, they would be so over the moon with it. Would you, consider it? Those kinds of business and it's all about relationships. As a casting director, you build a body of work that tells the world, not the world, but our industry or people representing actors, oh, well, this casting director is has a great track record of interesting projects, and so I take what this casting director says. There's some weight to what they're saying, and even though it's low on the money scale or the relocation isn't optimal or the commitment to a second season of something, just different factors that come into play aren't optimal for my client, I'm going to still give it some attention because of how emphatic this casting director seems to be about it. It's our
As
job.
you developed, as you came up the ranks, you had what was it about casting independent cinema that kept pulling you in and gravitating? What is it about? Because on the other end, you've got to run your own business, you've got to work as a freelancer, and so you had to learn probably more business skills faster. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, as an independent casting director, you kind of do everything. I never really had a budget to work with the team, so I was doing assistant work and casting director work. Like I'm sending out the sides, I'm pulling the sides, I'm answering the phones, I'm doing a lot. I'm sort of a one-man band. But I am drawn to the independent world because usually there's less budgets, which means less financial risk, which means you can take more chances with stories and tell stories of marginalized people, groups, communities. I found that interest. I just found independent films told more interesting stories and put a lens or a spotlight on things that I normally didn't see on screen, and that excited me. And they were early on in Asian representation and stories of Asian representation, or LGBTQ representation, and um, kind of the struggles of people in marginalized groups and what they went through. And so those topic matters always move me. And just like performance is key with an actor, story is key for me. So that's why I was drawn to that world.
That it's so encouraging to hear, and I think that's probably going to be aspirational for a lot of people that are going to watch this. That what you care about and what you love should be part of how you're developing your career. I think one of the things, and you both have kind of alluded to this, is we spend almost all of our time with each other. So I want to be with people I love. I want to be with people I enjoy being around. I don't like being around mean or snarky or impatient people. I find it stressful through my day. So I tend to work with more chill people. There are, different personality types that go into when I'm bringing my team together. I'm also thinking about the quilt of we're all going to be in this office space for months, and how's that team, and in addition to who they know, the relationship building, the resume they have, what are these two people going to get along when I'm building my teams? Can Kim, you talk a little bit about that as well, in context of you work both in-house, like HBO used to have a casting department in-house. People don't realize some companies do, some don't. And then you were independent for a long time. Then you worked with Tyler for a long time. Now you're back in-house at a big, huge company. Talk about the differences as people are looking to build their career, that are up and coming casting directors. What are the differences that people should be looking to find out? What kind of questions what should they be aware of as they're contemplating, am I going to go to try to be in-house somewhere, or really work for the films that I care about and be more indie minded?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there are benefits to both sides, both independent casting and sort of being in-house. And to what Julia spoke about, oftentimes when you're indie, especially when you're in the indie world, you are a one-man band. And so it is your, operation, your shop, you're calling the shots, you're in control literally of everything, versus when you work for a company, you do have many more layers that you have to answer to, and many more sort of things that you are held accountable for in a different way than you would in the indie world. And again, both, like I said, both are great. What I like about where I am now is that I can take my indie sensibilities, and to what Julia spoke about, sort of talking and speaking and doing projects that are about these traditionally marginalized communities, and now taking those actors and implanting them into broader projects to help move the needle in a much larger and important way, which I think is really valuable and really important. And so that's what I sort of love and champion in my role. And then in terms of the personalities, yes, as I build out my teams, I'm very much like you. I want to be working with people who are like-minded, because we have so much pressure and stress from things we are not in control of. The last thing I want to do is, in the midst of that, come back to an office that's filled with that sort of crazy animosity, the personalities and all of that. And so to your point, I want to make sure that we're of like mind and spirit. And yes, things are going to happen that cause, disruption all the time. But for the most part, I want to make sure that we're all sort of in lockstep of like, okay, but at the end of the day, are we happy? At the end of the day, are we communicating and collaborating in a way that is works for all of us, and we can walk out at the end of the day and feel happy and proud of what we've done, in this particular day. So yeah.
Yeah, I do, because I know my personality and I know my strengths, I know my flaws. Um, I find that, like, to work in comedy, you have to have a tough, thick skin. Things move fast, and and I think personalities are edgier. There's more comedy, so people are cracking on each other more, right? That's just endemic in a show. And so if you're on a series, that casting office is going to have more vibrant, bigger personalities, people cracking on each other all the time. It's a rougher deal. So if you can be sensitive, if you can be offended easily, maybe half-hour comedy is not the space that you want to, because again, those casting sessions can be a little. Can you imagine the casting sessions for Rescue Me? I'm just saying, like, not for the faint of heart on a weekly basis. So so these are things I think I encourage people to think about. Kim, for you in house, uh, you're touching a lot of different types of shows. What's your advice? Do you believe people as they're growing should focus on a type, be the hour drama person, be the half-hour comedy person? Does it help strategically as you're building a career to be known as somebody who's really good at? Right. For instance, I think of you guys when I have great shows, but um, Julia, you work a lot in representation of Asian acting, but you don't only do Asian shows. So how does one grow their career? Does it make sense to be a specialist? Talk, Kim, and then Julia, I'd love to hear your thoughts about what the strategies can be for young and mid-level casting pros.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is helpful to be a specialist because then there is a targeted thing that you sort of have command of that can be helpful. That said, you also want to be a broad, have a broad knowledge. So for example, Julia, we know, has a specialty in Asian casting, and we know this about her, but we also know that she is capable and qualified to do those other things as well. And so that almost makes her sort of ahead of the game in a way, because she's specialized, but she's also skilled, generally speaking.
Did you have to navigate people's preconceptions because you worked for Tyler for so long? Like,
Oh,
how did you
definitely.
get back to mainstream stuff that wasn't? Did people think, oh, you only know Black actors?
Yeah. And I think even with my, incredibly diverse resume in people's faces, I think just because I'm a Black woman, so that's what I present, then the default is, well, she knows Black actors. And
so what did you do to compensate that? Did you look and aim for shows that had larger diversity in their cast to show them that, or how did you navigate that?
No, I then would just pull out my resume again and go over the list of shows that I've done, films that I've done, and then also remind them of, we just had a 30-minute conversation where I talked to you about a whole bunch of actors that you didn't even know. So how are you asking me if I only know Black actors?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So yeah. So I think it's a combination of one, knowing that I know who I am and what I know and what I'm capable of, being able to speak to that directly and specifically. And again, because I am a student of my career and my of the world of casting, I am often the one on a call, even when I will come to a call with all of these people that have sort of all kinds of, experience and history and success and whatever. But I'm the only one that can speak, again, very broadly and very specifically about a very broad list of actors in a way that I think sometimes is people find it surprising. But again, I think it's because, again, of their limited expectation of who I am and what I represent. So it's surprising for them, when I can speak, about all kinds of actors
Deeply, broadly,
Yeah.
knowledgeably.
yeah, yeah.
Julie, I'm sure you navigate both sides of the fence on this.
Casting directors can get typecast too. And, I love that I have this specialty, but I don't want to be boxed in, neither does Kim. And so it just happened to be that way. But I strive to not be repetitive, just like an actor wants to be considered broadly. We want to be considered broadly. And so it's about opportunity. And I do credit Plan B and A24 for letting an Asian casting director cast The Last Black Man in San Francisco. It's opened a lot of doors for me and allowed um, the community and the industry to view me more broadly. And I do get a plethora of Asian projects come at me now, and I try to be very selective because it's not just that I respond to. It's the story, like I said. So I don't want to be typecast either. And actually, Kim is instrumental in having such an open mind to allow me the opportunity to cast my first pilot for Freeform, and had nothing to do with color at all. She just thought I would be a good fit with the creators of this kind of irreverent and funny show with some very edgy characters. And it was a huge learning experience for me. She helped navigate the very rough and choppy waters of being at a company like that. It was a totally new situation for me. So I was in very good hands, and congrats on the show. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's we're so very happy. Yeah.
It came out great.
Yeah.
Can you guys tell the audience what show it is? They can check it out.
Of course, single drunk female.
Freeform.
Freeform. Woo-woo.
Yep. Yep. And Hulu. Yes.
And Hulu.
Next day on Hulu.
Next day on Hulu is the phrase, right? Yeah. I think it's important. What's going to be really interesting is talking about, as young people are coming up and creating agency for themselves and figuring out what their careers could be, and you know what you're good at and what you want to learn and what you get stronger at, and understanding your personality, understanding your characteristics, but also what can you work on and grow and learn and focus on. So I want to talk about, as you are building your teams for upcoming projects, when you're looking to who your associates, assistants are going to be, your interns, are there any tips in terms of how people are presenting themselves, how people are interviewing? What is it that helps capture your imagination or your attention with the hundreds of people that are applying for these jobs to work with you? What are ways that you've noted that you've really appreciated the way somebody expressed what should stand out for them that makes them more hireable for you? Kim, can you go first?
Sure. Again, I think it depends on what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for an intern, I am looking for somebody who presents with confidence, enthusiasm, and passion, is sort of open. I get the sense that they're open to learning, and is curious. I don't know necessarily that there's anything specific on the resume that I would be looking for, but if there are things that you have done or in the creative space, in whatever form that is, that's interesting, because I would probably want to talk to you more about that, again, to get to know who you are and what your passions are and what drives you. as an assistant, again, I think it's part confidence, part enthusiasm, part again, probably the same things, curiosity,
Is any admin background, like even if somebody worked at the Gap or somebody worked in an office and knows how to, like, do those resonate?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Again, I find that often those things, you know, again, yeah, yes and no. I mean, not really. I think it's for me in those roles, intern assistant, it's more about the personality, the sense that you can follow instructions, that you are, open to learn, that you're, willing to ask questions. And again, just a sort of self-confidence and a self-possession so that I don't feel like, um, for lack of a better word, like that you're a wilting flower, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Because I think any experience is helpful, especially when you're at the beginning
I mean,
phase.
any life experience.
Any life experience,
Right.
exactly. Office, Gap, Starbucks, whatever it
For
is.
me, I'm more interested in if I see somebody had a job through college or had 10 jobs through college. To me, that speaks to, oh, wait, if you're bouncing around a lot, does that mean you have a difficult time working with other people? Are
Right,
you more of an individual that
right,
likes to work, be self-starting and work on your own, or can you work in a team?
right.
So quickly, and Julie, I want to ask you this as well. For the associate position, in addition to credits, are there other ways that you want to see people reveal, kind of put their package together to get that gets your attention?
I have a situation now where my assistant is has proven to me that they are ready for the associate position. They caught on with the way that I like my office run really well. They've stayed consistent. They're one step ahead of of what is needed to be done. Before I even have to ask, it's already been done. That person is thinking like we already like, oh, these are the things based on this conversation or our last casting session that need to be done now. They have the links. We have casting links of people's auditions that we need to deliver to everybody that needs to watch it. They already have started it, things like that quickly proved to me that they are ready for that elevation. And also the way that the correspondence, because I love to delegate when it's feels comfortable for me because they are representing my office, and but I don't need to be a control freak even though I am. And I would like to be able to share responsibilities, but they have to show me that I can trust their replies, their email replies, or their phone mannerisms are going to represent the office in a way that's respectful, professional, enthusiastic, positive, all those things. And that all like aligns to we all work really closely together for very long hours. So you do have to like who you're working with, and the energy you bring to the office is super important. Just like a director wants to work with actors that are going to be collaborative and pleasant and not be a constant problem on set because things work fast and there's many chefs in the kitchen and you just want as smooth a situation as possible.
Yeah. Kim, one of the things I think is also helpful is where are you getting? I love that casting is not a lot of people know each other in the casting spaces. And so, like Julia was saying, people who do a good job rise within their companies or they get recommended up and out. But where do you find, before you were in house, because now you've got a whole HR department, but how, how did, how did you find people? Was it all word of mouth? Like, did you call other casting directors to get recommendations? How
Yeah.
much is relationships versus cold resumes involved in your casting team hiring?
Yeah. So what I will say is I don't often find success with my HR team in terms of finding assistants. Yeah. And so for me, it is probably, I would say, 80% word of mouth. No, maybe 75% word of mouth and 25% really of me sort of sourcing people. And again, I've found luck at Nordstrom. I plucked somebody from Lane Bryant once. So I like, clearly you can see I shop, but
I was gonna
part of
say.
it is me.
You shop for my soul.
Right. So I find people just kind of, I mean, I found people, in a restaurant. Like it just depends on what
So
my
you are attracted to that person, whatever their quality is, and you'd rather invest the time to teach them
yes.
it's the right vessel than
Yes.
somebody with a ton of credits, but maybe the interview isn't.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
also Facebook pages for casting directors, things like that, networking between us. And CSA is a great source because I always encourage people to send their resumes to CSA. And then when I'm looking, I'll ask CSA, hey, can you send me
Yeah.
a current round of resumes? And then you look at the resumes and that presentation on the resume, whether it's extracurricular stuff during college, they stayed active besides just going to school, or say they had a job at Starbucks but then they love to you just see on the page how a person is conducting themselves and what experiences they've had.
And
I
so
think
CSA is Casting
Casting Society of America.
Casting Society of America, and we're going to put the link in there for you. There's some resources there. Kim, we're going to ask you about the training program. I don't know if that was still a thing.
It is. It is still a thing.
Okay, so when we get there, we'd love for you to share. I was surprised and a little disheartened at how little there are of resources. Of all of our departments, I find people trying to find casting training programs the least. There's in terms of even local colleges. I found something, and it was an actor. It was a casting training series, and it was like led by actor blah blah blah, which is a red flag that's probably not going to give you the information you need to become a great casting director. So I'd love to talk more about that as we pivot. But in terms of identifying great candidates, I think I encourage people to check out Backstage West, backstage.com, and look at who's casting the shows that are coming up, because if you never know when they need more help. Shows blow up, shows get bigger, shows get picked up. Do they need more help? Because some of their assistants have leveled up and are now working on their own shows. So how strategically people can get their information in front of hiring opportunities and not get lost in the jobs at paramount.com, right? We all know the futility of the feeling that we're just sending our things into the ether. And I can't reiterate enough how much relationships. I don't know that I've looked to hire a casting director for 15 years because there's 4 people I work with. And we're fortunate enough to meet you all and Matthew LaSalle, and really young in my filmmaking career. And so it would be really hard all 4 would have to be really busy on other things for me to even open up my brain to even start to look at.
And we would recommend somebody if that ever were to happen. We'd be like, you should try so-and-so, they're great.
Right. So for me to get somebody new, when my thing going for a while. So it's important that casting up and comers realize how important those relationship building, and I am not using the word networking. I will not use it because it's not authentic. These people are also friends in my life, right? We know each other, we support each other. Um, and I think those are things that started pretty early on in our careers. And that's what casting people need to find the people that you like that are making stuff you dig. Who are those filmmakers? Get to know them. I can't reiterate that enough.
I would like to add that in this time of virtual casting, people are starting to, well, I know a lot of casting directors that have kind of closed their offices and now they work from a home office
yeah.
and now only venture out when maybe a big callback or something. And there's a lot of facilities all over on the West Side, in the Valley, in Hollywood that are casting facilities. And that's another great resource to
Great
walk
idea.
walk in there and go, who's casting today? And hi, I know you're busy, you're in session, but here's my resume. I would love the opportunity to meet with you if you're ever looking for an assistant. Commercial casting directors are usually always there, but now a lot of other types of
Sure.
genre casting
Because
directors
people
are
don't
using
have
these
the
facilities.
offices.
Yeah,
So many-
they
and
rental.
Do
Yeah.
you think actually working at the facilities is a great entry level job as well to meet
Yes.
who's who? And
Yes. My assistant was the lobby assistant at CAST, CAZT.
this is where I use because it's the one closest.
Yeah, because it
now.
was a great idea at the time. It was a
Yeah.
By
day
the hour.
rate place. Yeah, by the hour. And it helped these, and there was space station, casting station or
Yeah,
space
and they
station.
had
Yep.
that one was they had a
Yep.
troupe of actors. And if you audition a certain amount of their actors, you could use a certain amount of hours of
Yeah,
space
yeah.
for free.
So like
That's
this
right.
assistant of mine was the troubleshooter for every casting director that was like, this isn't working, or why isn't my light not working? So he bopped in to everybody and got to know them all, and also got to see so much just being there in that environment. And so I definitely think it's a great environment to learn how things operate. Yeah.
It's so helpful. So as we round kind of our last couple of questions here, I wanted just to talk about knowledge base, which is there are some fundamental tools of the trade that, unlike editing or camera, how can people learn the software, learn how to work, understanding Breakdown Express is kind of the home office for every casting director, every show, and the different companies that they have, which many of you have heard also runs Actors Access, which for non-union is where a lot of casting directors and directors find cast for that. And it seems like a lot of the assistant work and associate work is using Breakdown Services tools, but it's not like I can download the student version of Final Draft to learn how to use the software so I can get my job in the writer's room. How do young casting people, you want somebody who knows how to use Breakdown Express and how to enter the casting breakdown. How can they learn if they're not in a
I think CSA's training program is part of the answer to that. That we started that so that it was started so that the people who are very new to the process, because once you're in the process, it runs like clockwork.
If you learn it.
Yeah.
So are you all, we're going to put the link up. You guys can read about the training program, which is in the Casting Society's website. I think there's a link in there.
Yeah.
Is it a cycle? How do people can people just register? Do they have to be selected? Is there the application process?
Do you know, Kim? I'm not 100%.
Yeah, it is cyclical. I think there are 3 sessions a year. You do apply, and it's more to just gain your level of interest, just your enthusiasm, passion, and those kind of things for learning and doing this work. And there are 2 parts to it. I believe both parts are each 6 weeks long or something like that. Don't quote me, but It's all on
Yeah.
the website.
Yeah.
But the idea is that you sort of learn the very sort of basics about how to operate in a casting office, tools, breakdown, how an office runs from inception of a project to you cast a role, and then once you finish both sections of the training program, then you move into a mentorship program where you're paired with a casting society casting director who will then sort of be your sort of guru, Yoda, and help you transition to the next phase, which is getting an assistant job, ideally, in someone's office. But it is a really wonderful, fabulous program for anybody who wants to learn the nuts and bolts of how to operate as an assistant in the casting office. It's similar to how Julia and I learned as interns. The difference is that it's not the actual hands-on being thrown like into the deep end like we were. Those opportunities do still exist in a different way. There aren't unpaid internships really anymore, so that's not a thing. There are paid internship opportunities that are available. My company, the Walt Disney Company, has an internship program that operates in the casting space, so that is a resource. I know that some of the other studios do as well, so that's something to look into. If you're interested in it for Disney, it's the Disney Careers website, and it'll provide all the information for our internship programs. And they're really great. They're really wonderful, wonderful programs.
Really helpful.
Yeah.
That's so helpful. I think also as people think that they can do on their own. So for all of you in the audience, the library is going to be sending you a PDF deck of all of the resources and links we've talked about today, and some other resources through the library, things that you can utilize, and tools and resources the library can provide for you as you learn more about extending yourself in this space. That'll be emailed to you during the week to everybody that registered to watch this session. I want to talk a little bit about casting director's role and navigating, I want to say protocol, but also appropriate casting. What are, you all are really the arbiter of making sure that some directors maybe don't understand what's cool and what's not cool. It's not cool to have auditions at somebody's house, right? Casting directors a lot of time have to learn these rules first because they need to modulate the behavior of the client, of the director, who might either know and still want to do things their way, or just are up and coming and not aware of what's appropriate. That people in auditions don't necessarily kiss in the audition. Just certain protocols. So are there tips and tools that you guys have used to teach your people under your tutelage, and where to learn what's a good casting session, what's not cool in the casting session, what's the law, in terms of, and also I want to speak about how during COVID things have changed a lot, and just tape, and are we going to go back to being in a room all together, and how is that changing how you're doing your jobs? What do young casting directors need to be aware of to teach themselves as we kind of figure out how we're going to do our jobs moving forward? But can you talk a little bit about what's the best way for casting directors to understand what good audition etiquette is and what that even means?
That's evolved so much since I'm sure we both started, Kim. Gosh, I mean, I look back on some of the things that we let fly back then, and it's a big no-nos now. But we live and learn, and it's through those situations that we are in a much better place today, hopefully, in what is
Well, a director
acceptable.
can't make an actress take her clothes off in a session.
Right.
We all lived
I
that.
never even knew that was a thing. I just, that's, yeah. Anyway.
Well, I work in commercials and we have athletic wear and swimwear. And so it's all about the physique. And so you cannot show up baggy clothes, but we certainly don't ask them to do what I used to do, and strip down into, your skivvies. Like, you basically just need to be savvy as an actor and wear body conscious clothing so that we can see. Yeah, I mean, we are the interim person between the awkwardness of some of these situations, and we have to
And
just,
clients and
yeah,
agencies who aren't used to anybody telling them what they can and cannot do,
right.
especially when people have been around a while and they were casting people in certain spaces that would let a client do that.
hmm Um, or when a director's, you know, uh, the way they talk to an actor isn't very appropriate and also doesn't really put them at ease. And it's just not a win-win situation when the actor is being spoken to like that. So yeah, we are the like iron outer a little bit of that situation.
Yeah. And the protector of the actor. I mean, I love to tell young people that find great mentors is just as important as getting an internship, is making sure it's with people who um, are doing things a great way. And if you're
Mhm.
working for somebody who isn't practicing good skills, get another job, get out of there. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
100%. Um,
Yeah, agreed. As I came up, I had the great fortune to work with really wonderful casting directors. And so I feel like my audition etiquette and protocol follows in line with, what I learned and how I work. And I want to definitely support my actors when they come into the room, which, as Julia mentioned, can be a very awkward and intimidating space for, an actor who we're asking to sort of give their all to. And so I want to just make sure they feel comfortable, they feel safe, they feel protected in, all the ways that they need to be able to
succeed.
deliver, a
Mhm.
great performance. And
Mhm.
so, I don't know that I necessarily like have like rules, as it were. Um, but I do know that if something starts to go wrong, or if I feel like there is somebody on our side who is not acting appropriately, I will immediately intervene and do a reset, because I just need us all to be again working in lockstep to be supportive and creative and collaborative on this journey.
Yeah. So
Well, uh,
I love bringing this up because I think people who are looking to have careers need to be people who are strong of spirit, strong of core, and strong in voice. Sometimes you have to be able to navigate a client diplomatically but firmly. And so those that maybe are less comfortable with confrontation, these are skill sets as you're assessing
mhm.
whether this is the road for you. It's really important to know that it's really important parts of the job that a lot of people um, don't see behind the scenes.
Something else. I know that when I first started as an assistant, when famous people came in, it's very like you're enamored, and especially people whose work you love, and it's a thrill to see them live. But assistants and associates are not there to socialize with actors coming in, no matter how starstruck you may be, or no matter how much of a personal fan you may be. You have to keep your conduct professional, and that's never been a problem in the past, but it does come up when an assistant gets a little too chatty with an actor, or an associate is just distracted from their work because they're talking with this person and about the movie that they just saw him in, and oh my God, you are amazing, and blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, it would be great to not put us in that awkward position where we have to say, hey, could you get back to work? Like,
Wait, so
we're
Julia,
still on our jobs.
am I not supposed to do that?
Wait, so the selfie with De Niro, I wasn't.
Right.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. I
did want to go back to one thing, Kim, you asked earlier, and that is about what we're doing now in terms of the rooms and moving forward. And I do think that we will be I think the pandemic did cause a shift in how we work. And I think part of that shift will stick with us, which I think that first round of self-tapes is never going to now go away. I think that is sort of the new way of things. And so we all
like a hybrid.
That changes how you're going to be able to hire people. You don't need people necessarily to be in your office watching tape. Does that change the way that it's going to create opportunity for people on the come up?
I do, because now I think that there is a space for people who maybe weren't necessarily based in LA, or didn't have the means to sort of be able to drive in on a regular basis into the city and do all of those things. Like, we can do those virtually now.
I love that more people with physical disabilities as well have more equity and being able to be considered for jobs that perhaps.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
That's right. So that part is amazing. I think for the foreseeable future, we'll still be in a pretty much virtual space, at least from the studio perspective in terms of auditions. There may be, times when we may do maybe in-person chemistry reads, maybe. But even that, who knows what happens, because what we did learn unsuccessfully is that we can cast projects virtually and have them be as wonderful and maybe even more sort of meaningful and deep, because we're seeing it come together kind of in a medium that we're watching things on. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
And we can read people from Australia and UK and Asia and not go, oh, they can't get on a plane to get here,
That's right.
So it's going to be like a hybrid. Yeah. Which I love.
Yeah.
Love it. I love that positivity. And through it all, casting director, I mean, everything kept turning. You guys, the whole industry really adapted and the work continued to flow. And if anything, more voices and more people from all kind of different backgrounds are being considered that wouldn't have before. And we're really excited that the casting is the heartbeat of everything. It's the first step of everything. So seeing how technology and the times are only opening the doors, creating more opportunity is so exciting. Thank you so much for spending the morning with me.
Can I say one more question in the chat about somebody who was considering making a pivot to casting, and they mentioned they were older? And what I want to say is that the age is not a barrier to coming into casting. I think if it's what you want to do and what you're interested in, just go for it.
I love it. I love it. That's great. Thank you for picking that up. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Kim,
enjoy your weekend.
Julia, so grateful. So much great information. And always good to see you, sisters. Catherine, thank you for having us. We look forward to, Catherine's going to tell you our next session and the date, and you guys can get registered to join me again here in 2 weeks. Thanks, Kim and Julia. It's so good to see you.
Bye.
Thanks, Kimberly. Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. This was so amazing. We hope that everybody's enjoyed the program. I know that I have. And a big thank you to Kimberly, Kim, and Julia, who shared really valuable information and insight that I think we all learned a lot from today. So we're really grateful to have had you all here. Like we mentioned, this is part of a series that is going on through June. And our next event in this series is April 23rd, looking at publicity and marketing in entertainment. Visit our website at lacountylibrary.org/creativecareers to see the lineup we have coming up. And this website also has recordings and resources for past events in this series. And if you are interested in participating in more of our upcoming virtual programs, please visit us at lacountylibrary.org. So thank you very much. And thank you again, Kimberly, and everybody for joining us. And we'll see you again soon.
Catherine.
All
Bye.
right, take care. Bye-bye.